PGA Tour, I mean, you kind of have to be a member to play in that. And if you're going to play in something else, I think they have the right to kick you out.
Yeah. Interesting to see.
Yeah.
There are some definite pieces about like the PGA mainstream. People don't get a minimal salary. Your caddies don't get a guaranteed salary. That's different than in a way. That takes away from almost the spectator. Makes it less interesting to me where finish 30th place, you're gonna make 400K.
Yeah.
So 30 place.
Greetings and welcome to the Saco School Board meeting for August 10th, 2022. Call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Let the record reflect that all school board members are present with the exception of School Board Member LaFortune and School Board Member Truman, who have been excused. And with that, I'd like to invite you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. With that, moving on to item 3, approval of the school board meeting minutes dated July 20th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Richard?
I move we approve the school board meeting minutes dated July 20th, 2022.
Second.
Second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Johnston?
I have a couple of comments to make about these minutes. Starting with the beginning where it notes who's present, and it also noted that, and I don't think I've seen this terminology before in a number of years, but it noted that I was tardy. So I think I would just say on behalf of this board and probably past boards that we all have other things that we're doing. Some of them are job-related, and I think we all intend and do our best to get here in a timely fashion. But if it's going to be noted that someone is late, I think that we should note exactly what time they arrived. I think I looked at the clock and I was about 4 minutes late last time. And I think it might be pertinent to things that happen further on in the agenda as time goes on. So I'd just like to request that if people are noted as not being here on time, that we note what time they arrived. And beyond that, and I think this is rather important, I feel like in general our minutes do not have enough meat to them. There was a fair amount of conversation at the last meeting relating to a variety of topics, including the refugee resettlement update, and none of the comments that were made by any board members are recorded here at all. It just seems inadequate to me for no comments to be made. I do want to thank the note taker that I was excused from the tail end of the meeting, but I also think it might be important to say that it was a 2.5-hour long meeting, and I had notified the chair both that I was likely to be a few minutes late and that I would probably have to leave 2.5 hours in. But I just think that there should be more detail to the minutes, and I think in particular the conversations that relate to important things like school construction and the resettlement situation, those comments should be noted in our minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure the superintendent will take it under advisement. Any further discussion on the meeting minutes? Roll call vote on the meeting minutes. School Board Member Archie?
I'm going to go with a no because I think that it should be adjusted to what Beth was saying as far as the tardy.
School Board Member Preble?
Is it possible we can table the minutes, have them adjusted, and have them represented?
At this point, the voting has
In the-
started.
Okay,
So-
so I'll say no on that then, at this point.
Yeah.
I agree with Beth and Artie on that.
School Board Member Richard?
Yeah, I apologize, I wasn't, I missed the parts that were missing, so I'll go no as well.
School Board Member Gale?
I guess just a point of order, if this fails, then what, if this motion fails, then what happens to the adopting these minutes in a future meeting? Although I guess it already fails, but just throw that
This
out.
is a motion to approve the minutes. This is
Yeah.
not a motion that you couldn't, unlike other motions, this is not a motion that you cannot bring back.
Okay, all
This is
right,
a motion that the minutes could be reflective of other things. I'm sure the school board will want to have a policy discussion at some point about their policy for note-taking and what's put into the meeting minutes and what's not. So,
yep, I vote no.
thank you. School Board Member Truman
I'll abstain.
and School Board Member Johnston.
No.
And the motion fails. And we'll look at the meeting minutes at another time. Brings us to item 4, any adjustments to the agenda this evening? Seeing no adjustments to the agenda. Moving on to item 5, there's no correspondence in your packet this evening. That brings us to item 6, public session. If there's anyone who would like to speak to the school board, please come forward and be heard. State your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing that nobody's coming forward to speak to the school board, moving on to item 7, superintendent's report. Superintendent Ray.
All right, good evening, everybody. Got a list of items here tonight for us in the superintendent report. First and foremost, our buildings maintenance custodian staff have been working really hard this summer to try to get our schools ready. It's not exactly been the easiest summer in the world to have work inside of our buildings, considering it's about 90 every single day. And we know that our buildings do a great job retaining heat in hot weather. And they are less than prime conditions for doing floors with this type of heat. But they're picking away, and we're in good shape. Any of you that get an opportunity to walk into Saco Middle School, please do. The interior has been painted. The company had an opening, and we were able to act on it, and it's just so much brighter. So we've had our hallways, cafeteria. We've got to do some work on matching some colors a little bit and some highlight colors. But it's just nice to see that progress move forward. When you walk in the main doors, you instantly know that this is a different scenario. It just looks so much bigger. So it's exciting to see. And also the first round of furniture has arrived. And they're putting that together. And again, not the ideal conditions last week to be putting together a lot of furniture, but that will be out in the classroom, so we're making some strides there. Hiring. Our job is to do a lot of hiring right now, and we are working on a process where anybody who is putting in an application, especially in our subs, ed tech, custodial arenas, those support staff, we're trying to reach out to them within 24 to 48 hours of submitting an application and getting an initial interview in so that we can pass that to the proper hiring manager. We just can't have situations where things sit for a couple of days because people have moved on and people are jockeying between positions. There's plenty of positions available in local schools right now, and so our motto right now is trying to act fast and act as quickly as possible with a personal touch out to them and making sure that applications don't sit. So that's something that's exciting. Jason's working on the application situation for the electric school buses, and we're hoping that we're going to be putting in 4 to 5 applications for electric school buses. That does not commit us to purchasing the bus if we get them, but it moves us into the next piece of the process, as that's something that we would like to see. For anybody who's watching at home, very important that you contact transportation office, fill out the forms, contact schools if that bus stop location is going to change. One of the hardest things that can happen on day one of schools is when people are calling the bus office that morning with a new drop-off location that may be different than what your paperwork or prior years say. And our goal is to have, we know that the first several days of transportation can always be difficult as kids are changing schools, there's new daycares, there's bus stops, there's drivers, and usually sometimes a lot of traffic around our schools, and we want to try to make that as smooth as possible, so having that information helps. Student registration, if you're watching from home and you haven't registered your student for kindergarten, pre-K, or you're new to the community, please reach out to the schools. The numbers are on the website. People are back and around our schools, and again, knowing that we have a population growth, it's important for us to know every student who may be entering our schools this year so that we can make sure we staff appropriately and make sure that class sizes are as balanced as possible throughout not only the schools, but across the city. We'll be starting our administrative retreats and welcome back next week. I'll have administrators 2 days with us, kind of gearing up for the start of school. Staff training days are the 25th, 29th, and 30th, where we'll be welcoming staff back with trainings. We are not going to do a big get-together again this year, bringing all staff into a gym. There's still a fair amount of virus out there, and we need everybody in our building, so we're going to be very building-based again on those first couple of days, unfortunately. As you all know on the board here today, we received an email from Sweetser that has notified us of a pause in possible land sale. And so we are going to have to shift our focus to the second choice of land that we have. We'll have a site selection meeting some point next week as we wrap our heads around this. But this is an unfortunate situation, as that was kind of the leader in the clubhouse for us after a lot of different meetings and a lot of different work. Items that will need to be restarted that probably will end up in a cost to the school department because the DOE will only pay for certain items one time is we'll need to look at traffic movement counts that we had done all last spring, preliminary work on a new traffic study will have to be redone. We'll have to do wetland surveys, which there are some for the Clare site, but if our second site of SMS needed to come into play, none of that's been done. And then phase 1 environmental assessments. And so the loss of all that work that we've done in time will make it extremely difficult for us to vote next June. So we'll bring site selection committee together next week. If there are other parcels, we've examined 30 parcels of land in Saco. If there's anything else that are out there, I ask the public to come forward because our schools, we need to take advantage of the state construction project, and having this delayed again is not in the best interest of our students. We need to find the site and move forward because I suspect the state will only be so patient with us, especially as changes in administration could occur at every election, and sometimes their views on school construction can be different. So that's challenging for us. The other piece that, and we're going to talk a little bit more about welcoming our new neighbors, but Stacy, Chris, Meg, all the staff has been working really hard to try to register kids and working really in collaboration with Catholic Charities. And we were doing everything possible to try to get all of the students here in Saco prior to September 1. And I did get an email this afternoon that the timeline just won't work. They can't take they were trying to take a 12-week process and make it into a 5-week process. And so this evening, we got an email that it looks like there will still be move-in dates the first 2 weeks in September. Meg and I have only had an opportunity to chat about that. But I think it's important for us to make every effort, if possible, to try to bring kids into their classroom on day one, even if that means us doing some transportation, because one of the hardest things that will be for teachers and for students is transitioning once the school year is started. And we need to try to stabilize that piece. So a lot going on this summer.
Thank you, Superintendent Ray. Any questions for Superintendent Ray at this moment? School Board Member Johnston?
Not, excuse me, not so much a question, but a comment. It's really disheartening and discouraging to discover that a site that we thought was very high on our likelihood and our list and desirability, and with the expectation that it was going to be available to us, has suddenly been taken off the list or removed. And I know that the site committee, as well as the construction committee as a whole, has worked really hard to try to find and determine the best site that we could find. So I just want to say it's discouraging and disheartening to me that at this point in time, when we thought we were sort of on a go, we're suddenly derailed. So, and I just also want to thank Superintendent Ray for working diligently as well with the committees to try and get us situated. And I appreciate his working hard on the two rather stringent projects that we have right now, which is one, the new neighbors, and two, the whole building instruction situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Beth, just to comment on that piece, I think one of the things that can be really challenging around a public process in this is that if we were selling our house to one another, there probably wouldn't be a lot of conversation about that in public. And the state requires so many different layers that it's really hard when you move through a process to talk specifics. Because everybody, when you're talking and you're excited about building a school, everyone wants to know where it's located, what it's going to look like, and there's so much work that goes into it that has to be done in public prior to having a commitment. And I think that's hard for both organizations or both entities that are involved in this. So while this is a challenge, we will overcome this. We will find what's right, and we will, like I said last time, we're going to cash that Powerball ticket at some point for this new school, and we're going to make it happen here. We're just going to have to go through a little bit more work in order to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. School Board Member Gale?
I guess staying on that topic, I mean, I agree that it's disheartening that at the last minute it feels like things have changed, but the building and site committees have done a great job, and we've got an alternative. We have a backup. So, I think as folks are disheartened, I think it's also heartening that we have an alternative that's been identified. One question, I guess, as we move to a different location, is there any thought before we move too far down the line to enter into some very high-level MOU or some sort of commitment to the prospective landowner, not that they will sell it to us, but that they will at least hold or be amenable if everything lines up? So not a contract, but an MOU saying, I'm interested in furthering this discussion with us.
I would need to check with the DOE on that process of what that looks like, because like with any site, you can have really good intentions, and then the wetlands don't work. And that becomes, the cost or boundaries don't work. So that's one of the challenges. The next two sites are city-owned. But I think that, again, the important message that I would want to put out there tonight is if anything has changed in the city since we started last year at this time, talking about sites and anything, like, sometimes people change their mind. And is there anything else that could come on the table that we got to move as quickly as possible, but we also need to make sure that we're wide open if something else were to come available, what shift could happen there. And the answer to your question, I need to talk to the DOE of what that process would look like.
And then just to follow up, I mean, I guess though that timing is of the issue, of the essence here. So at a certain point, we're going to have to move forward with the Claire parcel or some other parcel. But, the public doesn't have a whole lot of time to make a decision because we got to move forward, and hopefully someone will come forward, but we.
At this point in time, Oak Point will be moving their energies in another direction.
School Board Member Truman.
Quick question about staffing. How many open positions do we have right now? Ballpark.
That changes so daily.
Oh, God, okay.
So in the morning, I can email you what that ballpark, because that ballpark can be very different than it was last night. I know on Monday, I think I did 5 final teacher interviews that are now on here tonight. It's really support staff is our biggest challenge of finding that piece. And, when there's openings, I think I made a comment to a different board member earlier, is that in the market that we're in, if you don't want to drive a distance, you don't have to now. So if you are living in a neighboring town, the ability of open positions are there so that you don't have to drive. And that's definitely one of the battles that we seek, because then it looks, and we begin to, as we talked earlier about cost of living in this area is a challenge for us. And so Southern Maine, I know I was reading a couple of articles, just like the other day, there was an article in the paper about like Waterville, who had like 40 openings at one point. We're not nearly at those levels, but there's definitely a rotation that goes through. And I can get you that number in the morning.
Any further questions regarding the superintendent's report? Moving on to item 8, the chair's report. Just want to say I think all of our condolences go out to Chair LaFortune, whose mother passed away. So please send him and his family your well wishes and support. With that, moving on, there are no staff reports this evening under Section 9. Brings us to item 10, Board Subcommittee meeting minutes. The Strategic Committee met this afternoon, August 10th, 2022, at 5:30. So you'll see some minutes coming, perhaps the next school board meeting. And then the Finance Committee meets August 24th at 4 p.m. Here at City Hall. There's no planned meeting for the Infrastructure Committee or the Personnel Committee. Under item 11, old business, there's no old business this evening, so we will move on to item 12, new business. And the first up is item A, new hires, which there's a memorandum in your packet requiring action of the board for new hires.
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Truman.
I move we approve the nomination of Emily Jeffords, Fairfield teacher, Christina Petrulli, Fairfield teacher, Jamie Roy, Fairfield teacher, Rebecca Beto, C.K. Burns school counselor, sorry if I butchered your name, Michael Atkins, SMS Coast teacher, Margaret Jewett, SMS instructional coach, Gavin Pat, human resource manager, Kate Carrier, C.K. Burns teacher, Patrick Garvey, SMS special education teacher, and issue a contract for the 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Truman, second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion? School Board Member Gale?
Just a quick shout out and thank you and congratulations to the teachers, coaches, everybody that we just approved the nomination for. Thank you. And we look forward to all your great contributions.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? Roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
And School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. There are some appointments requiring no action, and that is in the memorandum that you can read. Brings us to item B, resignations.
Mr. Mayor,
School Board Member Truman.
I move we accept the resignation of Barry Jackman, CK Burns teacher, Jason Bradeen, SMS school counselor, Austin Joyce, SMS coding teacher, and Rachel O'Toole, SMS school counselor, effective immediately.
Second.
Motion's been made by School Board Member Truman, second by School Board Member Johnston. Any discussion on accepting the resignations? Seeing no discussion on accepting the resignations, roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. There are also some ed techs that have resigned as well that don't need any action.
Can I make a quick comment too? I just want to
Board
thank
Member
them.
Truman.
I just want to thank them for their service. I've had the opportunity to work with several of these people, and I wish them the best in their new endeavors.
Thank you. That moves us on to item C, educational specifications draft. Superintendent Ray.
All right, I'm going to invite Meg Parkhurst to come up and, while a little bit of the air has been taken out of the balloon tonight about the building project, we still have work to do, and we need to continue to press forward. And one of the major pieces, as you start to think about the building, is thinking about the educational specifications. And this is the program that you're going to have in the building. And this begins to be a big part of the document that goes before the Department of Education to look at, as they're designing the buildings, which programs you have. Example would be Ms. Trottier sitting in the room, and she's a STEM teacher. We would love to have a room that was really designed for that purpose. And knowing that STEM is going to be something that is probably going to continue in our programs, we want to make sure that the state understands that we value that position, we put that behind that, and that we want rooms that are designed with flexible space or an extra sink. And so this is part of the document that helps leads us to that piece, thinking about staff, thinking about the numbers that we'll have, and what are some of the important pieces that our new school in Saco needs to have. So, Meg?
Thank you. I would just like to start by giving a little bit of context and elaborate a little bit more on what Superintendent Ray has shared with respect to the origin of this document and the meaning of the document. It's a document where the questions that are identified in that table of contents and throughout the document are given to us by the state of Maine, and it's our task to summarize the work of the community through the programs committee that's been meeting for almost a year now, the student and staff survey that we've collected, and site visits that committee members have made to other area and regional schools, and then summarize the priorities of the Saco School Department in envisioning a new school and kind of lining up what the vision for the future of education is for the Saco School Department, and then how that would impact design considerations. Eventually, this document will need to have the stamp of approval of the school board through a vote, but at this point, we're just putting it out there as an additional point for comment. It's intended to be a living document at this point so that we can really ensure that we've accurately captured. There's a Google form link that will bring you to, that's on the title page, and that link is a link that has been live since the beginning of our building and site committee work to collect any feedback from folks that aren't able to provide feedback at meetings. We also welcome a phone call or an email to myself if there's anything in this document that anyone would like to further discuss. I will highlight just a couple of key points that came out of, that were kind of themes throughout those 3 different pieces that we tried to bring forth in the document. One is the importance of outdoor spaces and kind of bringing the outdoors in and having easy access for students in and outside. Another thing that we noted across multiple groups is thinking creatively about what common spaces look like and what small group instructional spaces look like, so that we're limiting interruptions in travel time for students that might be receiving additional services, and we're providing flexible spaces where multiple classes can meet, small groups of students can work independently and have some passive supervision from teachers so that they're able to work as a group, but also able to have teacher eyes on. And then also thinking about those spaces that are really critical for student privacy, so that there's a limited number of distractions and/or privacy respected for students when they're working with certain specialists, so that they're able to have a different space allocated. There's certainly a lot of repetitive information in this document with respect to those themes, and then other little nuggets, one of which that I will point out that I think our program committee had some good discussion around is designing the space so that we continue to think about the future of unified arts for our elementary school students, and that we want to design with the idea in mind that the specials or the unified arts that we have now for students may not be always those same unified arts, and how might we think creatively in designing a building about offering more wellness or nutrition opportunities for our elementary students, about thinking about what outdoor education means and how that might look in the unified arts, and designing the space in a future forward way so that we could accommodate those changes to programming for students.
Any questions for Assistant Superintendent Parkhurst? School Board Member Gale?
Just, I guess, maybe a comment on a question. The first question is, what is just generally the timeline? You said that this was a living document, and at some point the board will need to approve it. So what is that timeline? And then just in terms of a comment on the document, I noticed that the discussion of outdoor space, and just my only comment is that I think that could be strengthened as well, just in terms of kind of not only for our students, but then during the discussion for the community. That should be an important and valuable thing for not only our students, but the community. But that's my comment.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you for the presentation.
And just as one follow-up for timeline, I think some of that is dependent on we have kind of these 2 pieces running simultaneously, the site selection and the programs. And if we were talking about this a week ago, I would have said that I would hope that we would be voting on it in the next school board meeting or the following school board meeting. I don't know that that's necessarily as time sensitive anymore, and I think some of it depends on the feedback that we receive from tonight's presentation and community feedback following this. If there's a lot of revision that we still need to do to reflect the values, then we need more time to make sure that it's right. And if folks are feeling like it's a good reflection and those stakeholders have been involved in those various ways, then there's no need to delay longer.
Thank you very much. That brings us to item D, welcoming our new neighbors update. There is a memorandum in your packet from Superintendent Ray. Superintendent Ray?
Okay, so just a couple of pieces on this is that this is, again, we talked about having an update to the same memo several times as new information is added, and the information about students who would be, and families who would be joining us here in Saco was new prior to putting this out. The biggest piece that I want to talk a little bit about is that as our numbers continue to shift, that's like the hardest part of this, is making sure that we have balanced class sizes throughout the district, and how we can anticipate which grade level students would have moving into our community. Second piece is the financial aspect of this is starting to take into shape a little bit more. And I've been doing some work with the team. Had a meeting with Thornton Academy last week to talk about this piece with Bill and Kevin, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the position that we could be in using some of the current funds, because one of the challenges in this process, as we've talked about, is that adding additional funds would require an action from somebody. And in a budget validation situation, it could be either going back to the voters, whether that can be a council decision. But I think there are some strategies that we're starting to tease out where we may be able to cover a majority of these costs through our current budget, using some ESSER funds. Still got some work to do on those pieces, but I'm starting to get a clearer picture of how we might be able to parcel some of this together. Certainly there are aspects of transportation that will be a little bit challenging for us, and we may have to think about outside the box about how we purchase certain items, whether we're transporting kids to another school district or internally. We are trying at this point in time to hire additional ELL teachers immediately so that we have those individuals on staff. That's a difficult certification, and there's not a ton of those certifications out there. I believe we were able to extend an offer this week, Meg, to one candidate, and we had extended it to two, but one had another offer at the same time. So as we move forward, I suspect by the next meeting I might have a better idea of how we can begin to think about the finances on this. Certainly with the delay in the student piece, that will create another obstacle, so that as a board we can figure out what our next steps are going to be.
Thank you, Superintendent Ray, and I think it's important to note that the superintendent and I have been doing everything we can to find additional dollars from the city of Portland and also the state of Maine. So while the current budget may be able to help in some situations, we are still not giving up on searching for additional monies.
And I think that's a good point, Bill, because we're hopeful that there will be something for us. It's our job to turn over every single leaf, which we've been trying to do, meeting weekly and with, anytime somebody will listen to this to help support this piece. I think the biggest piece is that we're here to welcome the students to the school department, program effectively for them, and make sure that things go as smoothly as possible, as this is an opportunity for our current students, our new students, and us as a community to step up and provide assistance.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything about Our New Neighbors FAQ that I thought was a great, a great piece of documentation?
So last week we put out an FAQ, which may not have necessarily been the way that we would have wanted to do everything, but as people in the community have questions about things and we try to answer those questions as efficiently and effectively as possible, we felt that it was important to provide facts to people about what we were doing and not. So we put together the FAQ in a way to address some of the misinformation that people would have out there around that situation. So as things that we feel are important for the community to know about this situation, we'll put out there, but that was a way that we can help get correct information into the community.
Thank you. Any questions? School Board Member Truman.
You had mentioned, I think before, that because the people being resettled here in Saco are deemed under the homelessness, that the students can select to go back to their old school, right? I think it's Yarmouth?
So we'll be welcoming students from many different communities. Yarmouth was one of the first communities that moved in. Freeport, looking at South Portland Hotel next, is on the next piece. And so a student who is in this situation and living in non-permanent housing qualifies as a homeless student under the McKinney-Vento Act. Because of that, a student would have the option to choose to stay in their school of origin, where many of these students, so if a student chose to stay in, say, Yarmouth, for example, which some of the students did, we would be required to partner with Yarmouth to provide transportation to and from school, and those costs would be split between the school departments. Now, we know that transportation can be challenging at best, and so this is an area where we'll really need to, look at all options to see what would be the best, safest way to get students there, and to make that work for them and their families.
Thank you. I just was curious how the costs were going to be, if it was going to fall on us entirely, but you answered my question before I had to ask it, so thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions surrounding the Welcoming Our New Neighbors update or the FAQ? School Board Member Archie.
At the bottom of the chart, you have additional bus run for 65,000. Was that including that, or is that only from the Comfort into the schools?
So right now, that is just a situation, as that is a placeholder, and depending on what choices are, that line will shift, whether that's transportation to and from one location or two locations. And again, as students, or if students choose to retain in their school of origin, then we may not need the additional bus run because we can fit in the current situation, but we may be looking for bus transportation somewhere else or van transportation somewhere else.
So that was not from the hotel to the schools?
That was additionally what we were thinking.
Yep.
But again, when we additionally began to think that piece, we also were thinking that maybe some of our students would be in different pockets. So what will be more challenging, if more numbers tend to grow at the elementary piece, that will create a challenge for us. If we have a few more at the high school and middle school level, that'll be less of a transportation because many high school kids don't ride a bus. So at this point in time, we're just sticking with that figure until things come into focus a little bit clearer for us.
How do you feel about the other numbers? Do they side on the higher end? Are we guessing high is what I'm trying to say?
I typically operate that way, but what's challenging is when you look at a situation like tuition, I'm basing that off the number I have today. That doesn't mean that's the number that I'm going to have tomorrow, and so that will readjust up or down. When we look at a situation like an additional classroom teacher, some of the conversation is right now you look at the first grade being high, but that could change very much where it's not first graders, and it may be a situation where we want to hire an additional support staff that can go, a support teacher that can go through that. I think again, our original hopes were that we were going to be in a situation where we would be more solid of the kiddos who are going to be here at the start of the school year so we can make some of these decisions. And I think now we're going to, try to, based off the information we got this evening, how do we reposition our strategy to make sure that we know who's coming or have a better idea, even though some kiddos will be delayed. It's going to be tough. But I think, to go back to right now, overall, within a bucket, that bucket could shift or the place shift. I feel like we're starting to hone in on a more reasonable number.
School Board Member Gale.
Just following up on that, on the FAQ, thank you for putting that out. I thought that information was laid out very clearly. in a easy to digest manner. So thank you for that. The other important thing I think to note on that FAQ, for those at home or here who haven't looked at it yet, is that the first question was a request or had a link to provide assistance if you're interested in donating time, financial contribution, lightly used children's clothing, shoes, adult clothing, shoes, or really important diapers and toiletry. I guess just to clarify though, is this through, like, people who fill this out, will this be going to Catholic Charities, or will this be coming to Saco schools in terms of who organizes and the subsequent outreach to those who put their name in?
So we were thinking that was going to be you, Bill. No. So what we're doing now is beginning to collect people who are willing to assist us, so that then we have an easy communication email list as we begin to wrap our arms around this. We've had great conversations with Catholic Charities about, you have to be careful with donations, and you have to think about what are the appropriate spaces, because we just don't have a ton of storage either. And so our real effort in that was to gather the list and to help people. If someone has an interest in clothing items, and we want people to volunteer where they have an interest. And so our piece is about collecting those who are willing, and then thinking about what that communication strategy with Catholic Charities will be to help support all of those needs that we have.
School Board Member Truman.
I know this probably doesn't fall under your purview, but I wanted to inquire, because we had discussed this before, about how there's no access for any of the children to play on things. I mean, I know we can talk about this later, but is this something that anybody's made a discovery about?
So yes, we have been working with people who are willing to donate many different items, and some of that is going to be very much recreational. We did receive enough donations where I believe tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. the first playground will be delivered to site. And we have donations from individuals and businesses who are making that happen for us.
That's fantastic, thank you.
Any further questions on this item? Moving on to item E, which is a second reading of policies. Policy CBI, evaluation of the superintendent. Policy CB, school superintendent. Policy CC, administrative organization. Policy CHD, administration in the absence of policy. Policy CCC-E, organizational chart. Policy CBIE, superintendent evaluation form. And policy BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment/vacancies. Is there a motion to approve the second reading of policies? School Board Member Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will simplify this motion because you have just run through the list of what these policies actually are about. And I will just say, I move we approve the second reading of policies CBI, CB, CC, CHD, CC-E, CBI-E, and BBBE.
Second?
Motion's been made by School Board Member Johnston, second by School Board Member Truman to approve the policies read into the record. Any discussion?
I just want to say thanks to Chris and Meg for their continued hard work on getting these all straightened out and helping us knock these out. So thank you again.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. That brings us to item 13. There's no other information at this point. So we move into item 14. There is no executive session this evening. So with that, item 15, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
School Board Member Truman, is there a second?
Second.
Second by School Board Member Preble. Any discussion? Roll call vote to adjourn. School Board Member Archie?
Yes.
School Board Member Preble?
Yes.
School Board Member Richard?
Yes.
School Board Member Gale?
Yes.
School Board Member Truman?
Yes.
School Board Member Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0 at 7:50 this evening. Everyone have a great evening.